everyone. Welcome to Ready, Set, Action. Today, you're joining Deborah Horowitz, myself, Kristina Whitmer, and our special guest, Jo Espejo. Today, we're going to discuss Visual Branding Unlocked, 3 tips to elevate your look.
It's great to be here once again with everyone. Hi, and welcome in. I am extremely excited to be talking with Jo Espejo today. Jo has actually been a entrepreneur since 2012, and she is the founder and CEO of Branding by Jo, which is all about visual branding. So our topic today is Visual Branding Unlocked, 3 tips to elevate your look. And Joe, we're so excited to have you here to share your wealth of knowledge with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
So, you've been in business for a while. We were talking before the camera started that you've also made a pivot throughout that length of time in business. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and then also help us to understand what is visual branding, at least from your perspective. So, we're all walking down that same road together.
I love that. So, I guess a little quick background story on me. I grew up thinking that in order to be successful, you had to go to college, get a corporate job, work your way up the corporate ladder. So did that, went to college, got a degree, got a master's, worked in corporate for about 16 years. And somewhere along the way started a side hustle of photography. Fell in my lap, loved it, but never really thought that that was the path I was going to go on. And then after spending all of this time trying to help build other people's enterprises, I realized it wasn't allowing me the freedom that I wanted. Somebody else was deciding how successful I could be and really deciding my life. It's like, yes, you can work these hours and yes, you can work extra, but don't even think about taking an hour off to go try to do something with your kids, right? And then no matter how hard you worked or how successful I helped other people become, it was still just a paycheck and somebody else deciding whether or not I could make more money. And so decided, I guess it's almost about 4 years ago to go full time and decided to leave corporate America behind and haven't looked back. It's Entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. I will say that, but it is definitely 100% worth it. And I love it. And branding kind of stemmed out of just a desire and listening to clients. I was doing family photos and doing weddings and all this stuff. And people started asking me if I did headshots and if I did family photos and realized there was something there. And I kept saying, well, no, no, well, I guess I could do lifestyle. And then I started helping out some other female business owners that I knew with creating this content for branding and loved it. And I fell in love with this concept of being able to take all of my business experience that I had and marrying it with the creative side, and then ultimately helping people discover their confidence and really become the face of their brand. And that's, if you were to ask me, visual branding. So, branding is a hype word. Everyone talks about it, it feels like. But then when I really get down to the core of it, a lot of people are like, I've got a logo, I've got a website, check, done. Well, no, not really. So it just depends on what your business is. But for me, and I'm my own testament to how powerful branding can be. I was in business for 10 years, finally took advice from a mentor who told me I needed to show my face in my marketing. And my first reaction was no, no one needs to see me. They just need to see what I can do. And we had this long conversation about it. And finally, she challenged me, which if you don't know me, I'm a very competitive person. So finally, I was like, okay, fine, challenge accepted. I started posting professional photos of myself and immediately started getting feedback from people. Oh, I didn't know you were a photographer. I've been doing this for 10 years. What do you mean you didn't know I was a photographer? And what I realized is they were looking at their work, but they weren't associating it with me. And so once I started getting myself in my branding, then all of a sudden it was like, oh, wait, you are the photographer behind all of this work. And so I started implementing that. And that year, 2 things happened in my mindset shift was huge because I was able to confidently show up in my business. So I started posting pictures of myself because I had photos that I felt were worthy of getting out there. But then it started shifting, even walking into a room. Like I used to walk into a room and I would say, hi, I'm Kristina Espejo. And I do this thing. I do photos on the side. or I'm a photographer. But after I did the branding and really started honing in on that piece and feeling confident that if you went to my website, I would look like a professional. I had headshots, I was showing up. I would walk into a room and own that I was a photographer. Hi, I'm Justine and I own a photography business. This is what I do. And that shifted so much. My business 4X that year without me doing anything else. So that is the power of visual branding. And then we can dive into more of what that actually means. But visual branding to me is when somebody lands on anything that you create for your business, whether that be your website or a social media page or a business card or any marketing materials that you put together, do they know it's you? Do they know it's your business? And is it cohesive? Because if everything doesn't align, then you're confusing people. So long-winded story short of my story mixed in with visual branding. Did I answer your question?
Yes, absolutely, and thank you for that. Now, were you going to add anything, Christina, before we move on to tip number 1?
No, I'm sure I'll have a question later.
All right, so what would be the first tip that you would give to somebody who is either wanting to launch their visual brand or maybe refresh their visual brand?
I get asked this all of the time. And I think a lot of people are like, I just get overwhelmed with what there is out there. There's so many options. And honestly, for me, I'd say this is a double edged thing. One, you got to go back to the foundation of your brand because you can't make any other decisions without knowing why you're in business and what your values are. So I actually recommend when you're thinking about visuals, taking a pause and starting back at your foundation. Do you know why you're in business? Do you know who you're trying to serve? And what are your values that you're trying to incorporate? And then my next step would be to actually, I say, people say logo, website. I couldn't tell you the number of people that are in business and successful without a logo or without even a website. So I don't even say start there. I believe in starting with a professional headshot. You can then update your profile pictures, all of the things, LinkedIn, your business card, all of those pieces, and then the rest will come. But I think that is my number one tip is first start at the foundation. Why are you here? Who are you trying to serve? And then do you have a professional photo of yourself? Now, I'm not saying run out and hire a professional photographer, even though that's what I do. And I would absolutely love to serve you if you're looking for one. But we have so much technology at our disposal right now that you can do it yourself. And so, what I say by professional is you just don't want to be hiding in a shadow. You don't want to be in something super casual. I see a lot of profile pictures that are someone in the car with a seatbelt on. It's a huge pet peeve of mine. I'm like, what is it that we're doing? Like, if you have an iPhone or a friend with an iPhone, stand in front of a window, get them to put it in portrait mode, wear something that's semi nice. You don't even have to be in a full suit if it doesn't fit your business, but something that's complementary to who you are and who you want to serve, and then get a nice picture. That's where you start. And then when you're ready, then you go work with a professional, and then you get into brand photos and all those pieces. But number one is start with that.
I have a question. Do you find that people who are more established in their business further along are kind of trickier to convince sometimes that they need to go back to the core values of what they're doing? Or do you have a different approach when someone's new starting their business versus someone who's like seasoned into it? Is it a different approach?
So honestly, the approach is really the same. It's just a different conversation. So someone that's seasoned in business, a lot of times they're coming and they're saying, I'm finding success. I'm still finding that I'm talking to not always the right person. Like I'm still drawing the wrong clientele. So I'm getting the right ones. They're there. I'm finding success, but I'm still spending so much time talking to the wrong people. And there's a misalignment. And so they're coming and they're like, man, I'm there, but goodness, I'm still hustling. Like it's still a lot of work. I'm still having to feed through some of the wrong people and the clientele. And that's when I'm going, well, one, does anyone even know you exist? Because a lot of times people that are successful have been successful by word of mouth, by referrals. And so they're relying on their current clients to recommend somebody else, which is great. But then they're not using the power of what they've already established to have other people find them. So that's the approach if like you're kind of seasoned and in business. Those are my questions. Are you out there and how are you showing up out there? And then if you're new in business, usually it's there are 5 bajillion things I'm being told I need to do. Where do I even start? And everyone comes, I know I need to be on Instagram. That's honestly a hot one. Like, I know I need to be on Instagram and I know I need to post and I know, and I'm like, oh, okay, breathe. What do you need to be on Instagram? I don't know, because that's not the answer for every business. And then I'm like, okay, cool. So do you even know who you want to serve? And a lot of people immediately, well, I can serve everybody. And then I'm like, cool, let's start there. How can we? Because, it's this constant like, I can serve everybody, but you can't. If you try to speak to everyone, you speak to no one. So it's trying to really hone in, who do you want to serve? Where do you want to start? And then this is where I joke and tell people, I think I made this comment earlier before we went live. You're not marrying any concept. So if you start with something and then you decide down the road that you want to pivot or you want to shift, or I picked this one demographic because I thought that's what I wanted, but really I actually want to go this way. It's okay. You can pivot, you can change. Just pick one, really focus on that, because then you can gear everything to that. So, perfect example, if I'm telling you you need to start with your foundations and you've got down who you want to work with, and you're trying to choose between a corporate client, CEO level, whatnot, or my target market is a mom. Well, depending on what your target market is, would be my recommendation on what you wear in a headshot. Because if your clientele is like C-level suite people, then I would say we need to get you in business casual minimum, most likely a suit jacket, and something that when they look at you, they can relate and they can say, this is C-level. Now, if you're going after moms, if I put you in a suit jacket, it depends on what you're offering, but really you're not aligning for what you're wanting to serve for a mom. Because yes, moms could be C-level. Yes, they could be business owners. Yes, they could be all those things. But at that point, you're not relating in a suit. So then I'm going to go, well, let's maybe put you in a nice blouse, something a little bit more toned down that's more relatable. So that's why I say when you start with the foundation, it impacts the decisions that you're making then as you're creating your brand visual.
I'm not sure if one of the tips is going to be anything about video. So, if so, that would be great. But if not, let's just move on to your next tip.
So honestly, the next step is going to be your brand visuals, making sure that everything else aligns. So as you're getting into like your logo, your colors, if you're doing a layout for the website, a lot of mistakes that I see people make are one, they pick something that somebody else is doing that they were like, oh, they did that and I like it. So I'm just going to make mine look like theirs. Great. But if it doesn't align with who you are, then there's going to be a disconnect and it's going to come through. But kind of stepping into that next tip. So now we started with the foundation. Who am I serving? Then what are my values? What do I align with? We got the headshot. Now we're going to work on those other brand visuals like your logo, your colors, your fonts, and all of that plays a role. And a lot of people just pick colors based on either somebody else was doing it and they want to look like them, or colors that they just like. Colors have meaning. And a lot of times people forget that we're saying something subtly through colors. So then, second step before we get into the visuals, which videos would be probably my number 3 with consistency. But in the second one, when you're starting to create those visual graphics, making sure that your colors align with the message. So, for instance, when I used to do families and newborns, my brand colors were like a subtle, like soft pink and a lot of whites, really tying into that mother, like nature softness of maternity and newborn and baby, right? And then when I shifted and pivoted into branding, I went a little bit more bold. Now I've got like a midnight blue. I use black and I got rid of the soft pink. There is no soft pink in my branding anymore because that just didn't align. So that's where, you pick it. And then fonts, depending on what you're trying to say, you'll see like super scripty fonts. You'll see very stark fonts. You'll see different things. So the fonts, the type of fonts actually mean something. Like Times New Roman can kind of take you a little bit back. And then sans serif is that modern, but like I really still mean business. And then we get into like the fun fonts where I work with a school psychologist. I wanted her fonts to be fun, playful, looking like childlike because that was her target, is to work with children. So the fonts and all that stuff really play a role in your messaging and what you're trying to get out there.
Yeah, and staying consistent with using them throughout everything, correct?
So that's my tip number 3 is that really once you nail down your logo, you nail all these pieces down, is consistency across all of the things. So then when you're going to create content, when you're creating photos, This is where there's summers it goes planning into like a brand session and people don't realize, but like everything that we do plays a role and everything that we are, even out and about for a networking event, you are your brand when you're walking into a room. So, what is your outfits? What colors are you wearing? Are you aligning? And the more that you can be consistent in the touches, people start to recognize it and be familiar. So, like, a lot of times now, I've actually shifted my wardrobe that I try to stay pretty consistent to colors that are on brand or complementary to my brand. And I'm selfishly doing that for two reasons. One, I want people to start to recognize and feel like when they land on my website or they land on something that I'm creating, they're like, yeah, that's Joe. And when they see me out, they're like, yep, that's Joe. Like, yes, it fits. Everything fits. And then if I'm in brand colors and then the opportunity comes up to create a reel or to do something, get a photo with somebody, and then I want to go to post it in my social media, it doesn't clash. Like, because I'm consistent. And so that it allows me the opportunity to be a little bit more ad lib with some of my content. Although I'm a very big firm believer in batch creating as much content as possible. So I set aside time. I get photos done. I actually get my own brand photos done about every 3 to 4 months. I will sit down and actually set time to do my reels. And I take outfits. Like if I carve out a 2 hour window to do reels, I have outfits I'm changing into. And so I'm very strategic in this is gonna be my time, I'm gonna make it look like I recorded content on several different days. Really what it was is that I just changed. But the consistency is the key. And I think that's a piece where I see a lot of people making mistakes because they make quick decisions and they look at a decision based on, do I just like this logo? Yes, no. Well, yes, you want to obviously like your logo, but then does it also attract and appeal to my target ideal audience? Because if it doesn't, there's going to be a disconnect. And then, yes, I like these colors, but what do these colors mean? And an easy example would be like red. Red is a very powerful color. It can be amazing in certain instances, but if you're a doctor, red doesn't really work well. Like dentistry, red does not work well because now in that kind of clinical setting, we're associating red with blood. So if you have red in your branding, you're subtly like scaring people with this idea. So that's where the power of color can really come in when you're trying to communicate with your ideal client and subtly get a message across or even impact a message. So like if you
Mhm.
land on a life coach's website, if there's blues and there's some soft pinks, if she's a feminine life coach, like there's things that you're subtly telling the client, like, yep, I'm in the right place. This healing, this is soft touch, this is, different versus an accountant, you're not going to find the soft pinks because that's not what you're there for. So those
Right.
were the colors and all the pieces and the consistency really comes into play. And then as entrepreneurs, you guys both know we're constantly on the go, right? You're having to make decisions on a regular basis and you're moving quick, whether you're on a call with a potential client, you're servicing a client, fulfilling on something, trying to work on your business, you're constantly on the go. And so if you're making decisions without having a purpose and a strategy, all of a sudden all of your stuff can kind of look like it's piecemealed. Versus if you have a plan and you have these things, when I go to create content, I know, well, I'm going to create something for Instagram. This is the font I'm going to use. It's one of these 2 or 3 options. These are the colors I'm going to use. This is the look I'm going to use. And these are the photos I'm going to use. So there's very little that has to go into how is this going to look. It's now I just get to focus on what am I saying versus, oh man, what font do I want to use today? So that's where the inconsistencies come into place.
It's really good. I'm really enjoying this. I think, I'm curious, can you give a little bit of insight onto like what your process looks like when you first work with someone and like what steps you go through, or maybe there's different types of things that you do for clients? I'm curious the sort of pockets or services, packages you offer. But
Oh, yes, I'd love to. So most of my clients come to me with one or two things. I need headshots or I need brand photos. And then I just start to ask questions. And that's where I start. What is it that you do? Who are you trying to serve? And then we start to, what is your plan? Do you have a marketing plan? How are you using these photos? So that's where I start. And then based on what the answer is, so I had a client that came to me and said, I don't do any social media marketing. I only want to update my website and I post on LinkedIn occasionally. So So I need to update my profile picture and all that stuff. I'm like, perfect. So then you really just need like a refresh. You need a smaller package to get you about 25 images to update your website, update your profile pictures, and kind of just give you a good baseline of stuff. So if you're speaking or if you want to create an email newsletter or whatnot, you have some content. Now, if this other client comes to me and says, I'm launching a coaching business, I'm going to be posting on social media at least 3 to 5 times a week. I'm updating my website. I'm going to be doing an email campaign, all these pieces. I'm like, great. You need a much more in-depth library of images. And so then we would go into one of my brand sessions, which now we're looking at 4 to 5 outfits, 100+ images, really creating this in-depth library with photos of her face, full body, 3/4, detail shots. I like to create custom stock images. So like when you're on your website and you really don't want a face, but you want hands, or maybe your favorite book, or one of the tools that you use, your website and all of your materials can be custom stock images. So no one else has it because it's you, it's your stuff. And it really helps tie in that line. But there's a client questionnaire or not a client question. Yeah, I guess it is. I send it to my clients as a questionnaire, but really it's taking this deep dive into their business. And I ask them all these questions. What is it? Why did you even start this in the first place? What is your why? Who are you trying to serve? Who is your ideal client? What are you doing now? And what's working? What are you missing or do you not know? And that's where I meet them. And I tell them, don't stress out. If you go to answer these questions and you're like, oh no, then we take that deep dive. And my brand experience packages actually include a brand strategy call with me, where we're taking a deep dive and really honing in on who are you serving? What is your plan after this? How are we going to market those people? And then I tailor the photo sessions, video, and all that stuff so that we can implement and actually serve and communicate and reach out to those ideal clients.
What about brand guidelines? Do you find that is there a way to make those? Like, how do I've seen clients with like core colors and then they have a few extras complimentary. Can you get too many? And that
You can absolutely get too many. Um, and I think I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she's like, I'm going to go with pink this month. And I'm like, why? I mean, if we're doing a breast cancer awareness and you want to do a one-off with like a pink, cool. But just to switch up your brand colors because it feels good, you're just confusing your clientele. I recommend having a core set of brand colors where it's like 3 to 5. Really, realistically, you're going to be using 3. And then having some accent colors that you can use as like pops of color, depending on what you're creating. But again, just having that brand kit guide is so helpful. One for yourself. And then I always like to do everything intentionally. And if you're in business, my hope is that you're going to grow and you're going to want to outsource or bring on team members. And it is so amazing if you have a brand kit together that you can just share. Say, okay, great. I'm letting this part of my business go. You're going to create something for me. Here's that brand kit guide. That way, you know what fonts, what colors. This is the aesthetic and the feel and the vibe of my brand so that when you go to create stuff, it aligns. And it's not you having to take the time to go sit down and explain it 5 different ways from Sunday if you don't have time, right? Like it's so being intentional. But yes, I think having that core group of colors. Now, that means, though, I always recommend people, especially in their brand visuals, you don't always have to be in your brand color. So, say like navy, I'm looking at the Restream thing. And so that's popping up in my idea. If navy is one of your brand colors, then yes, wearing navy, but then wearing colors that look good with navy are also okay because you don't want to always clash. So when it comes to your outfits, you don't always have to specifically be in your brand color. You just want to have something on that then when you go to post it with your brand colors, you don't clash. So like with the Ready Set Action, you've got beautiful colors with like the pinks and the purples. You throwing on a red outfit, it's not going to look great maybe with your branding, right? But there's definitely colors. So I recommend sticking either right next to the color, like on the color wheel, or even going opposite because those usually complement whatever's on the opposite end. So right around it or like opposite on the color wheel.
I just decided that for swag, you should give color wheels, like physical color wheels.
Yeah. I need to look them up, but they're actually kind of cool little. That's what I know, but there's people out there that will actually match your color. Like, so each of us apparently have colors that we look really good in. And so sometimes that's also something to consider. I've had some people get some really fun brand colors, but then they don't look great in them. So then that's when I'm like, okay, well, accent colors, right? So wear some jewelry, maybe some fun shoes, that like in colors that just no one looks good in. And then, or it's just so overpowering. So
Yeah.
that's the other piece too. If your brand color is a really bright, vibrant color, if you put it on, eyes are going to divert to your outfit. You never want your eyes to divert from your face. I would love, if your face is in the photo, we want the first thing that people look at to be your face because that's where we can all that connection.
That makes sense. So I think we're about at time. Are we good, Christina? How much time do we have?
Do you have any more questions? Debbie, you're allowed one question if you need to.
Well, got so many questions. We've talked about the consistency. We've talked about the mistakes, and I think just lastly, going back to the logo, I see a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs get paralyzed with trying to find that perfect logo and delay website launches for months because they're just not 100% sure if that's the right logo for them. So, what would be a suggestion within a few sentences or whatever that you could recommend that would kind of help them? Is that the time where they really need to call in an expert? I'm sure they've already gotten family and friends' opinions and they're still on the what to do. So, what do you recommend?
Okay, so one, I go by this mantra, done is better than perfect. If we overanalyze and analysis paralysis on every decision that we have to make, you are never going to get anywhere in business. And you just have to really decide how important is it. And I don't know about you, I have a logo and I love it, but I am not at the level of like Nike or Target or, Starbucks where like you're going to look at my logo and immediately know who I am. So you have to value whether or not it's really worth the sweat, blood, and tears on deciding a logo. And so my recommendation is pick one, move on. And then if you want to tweak it down the road, you absolutely can. It's your business. You can do whatever you want. Now, if you get to like Nike's level and they're trying to pivot their note logo, maybe not. But until you get there, you get to make the tweaks. So done is better than perfect. And do not let it hold you up. Like websites, my recommendation is always start with a page. Like you don't need a 10-page website. You just want to have a landing page where you can look legit and then you can start to build. So start with a page and then you can add a second page. And then you can add a third page down the road. But everybody that's waiting for all of the ducks to be in a row, and I used to be that person. Don't get me wrong. Like I spent months and months working on my website. I can't tell you the number of clients I spoke to that never even looked at it, not even once, because they had been referred. They called me up. They immediately knew they wanted to work with me. And then everything else was just kind of in the wash. Like they didn't even look at the website. So that's where I'm like, yes, you need a website, I think, to be credible, but I don't think you need a 10-page website to be credible. Yes, it'd be nice for you to have a logo, but start with your business name. And then this is a caveat too. We get so creative with our logos sometimes. If people have no idea what your business is when they look at your logo, you've gone way too wonky on the creative side. We just want to keep it simple. Like they need to be able to look at it. And I want you to think about when you're creating a logo, you have to have a version that no matter how small it is, it can be read. And then imagine that you're sponsoring an event and it's going up on this banner. And if I'm standing across the room, can I look at it and see what it says? And that's coming from experience because I had a logo with this beautiful little font script in it and it went up on the thing and I was like, can't read it. I have no idea what it says. Looked beautiful on my website, like super pretty in this 2x3 version of it, but blown up, it was unreadable. So there's my tip on the logo. Done is better than perfect. Keep it simple and make sure that it's readable, super tiny, and then in all the versions. That way you don't have to revisit it if you don't want to.
Good.
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, I really enjoyed this. I know I'm going to have some follow-up questions for you, Jo. So this just you're not done with me yet. So I have.
No, it's fine. I love it. I appreciate having the opportunity to come chat with you ladies today. I would love the opportunity. And if anybody has any questions, I just message. I'm always happy to chat branding and kind of give people a nudge in the right direction.
Yeah, and we'll post some of your information in the comment area as well. So I learned a lot. I mean, we'll summarize, but professional picks. Don't just do things because you think people told you to be on Instagram. Niche down, look at wardrobe, brand visuals. There was so much we got from this episode. So thank you,
Can I just
everyone.
add one last caveat? Your friends and your parents and all those pieces, you can trust them in so many different avenues of your life. Your business may not be one. So if you are working with an expert who is making a recommendation, do not get feedback from somebody else and then have that outweigh what the expert's telling you because they just don't always align.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope you really enjoyed today's session. I hope you'll join us next time for Ready, Set, Action. It's Deborah Horowitz and Christina Whitmer. You can follow us on LinkedIn, and we're on Spotify and YouTube. So we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks.